Hey guys, so I know the format has been pretty stale for a while, but at least next month we should have the new ban list in effect, so that's exciting. So let's take a look at what hopefully will be the final month of this format, looking at what the top 25 ranked players on Dueling Book are playing. So this month, the decks played by the top ranked players were actually a lot more diverse than last month at least. Maybe even they got tired of playing Tri-Brigade all the time, who knows, but Tri-Brigade was of course the most represented deck, contributing about 30% of all matches included in this month's meta-analysis. Then we have Drytron, which of course is not too surprising either, followed by Dragon Link and Prank Kids. I would have expected to see more Prank Kids considering that it won the North American YCS and just being a really good deck in general, and also clearly Dragon Link is still a really strong deck despite the ban list hits. Then we have a lot of rogue decks that were piloted by our top ranked players such as Sky Striker, which I guess might be more tier 2, followed by Pure Zodiac, still seeing consistent play despite the ban of Trident. Then we have ABC and Grand Maju made it here for the first time as well. Then we have Mech Knight, Salamangrate, Math Mech, Altergeist, and Dogmatica Invoke Shaddoll, with some other decks like Ad Ignister and Eldritch making it into the mix as well. Now if you look at last month's meta-analysis, you see that there was not nearly as much diversity, with Tri-Brigade taking up pretty much half of the pie chart. We did see some Infernoble and Virtual World last month, and I was surprised to not see Virtual World at all this time around since it is a strong deck right now as well and was the finalist in the North American Remote Duel Invitational recently. Now our top players won about 71% of their matches, and interestingly this win percentage has been declining in the last few months since it was typically around 75% win percentage among our top 25 players. As for the deck playstyle, of course with Tri-Brigade being the most popular deck, the most played playstyle in this format is still Control at about 56%. We did have a bit more beatdown strategies this time around with decks like Math Mech and Grand Maju being played by our top players. As usual, let's cover some of the top few decks played in more detail. Tri-Brigade won 69% of the matches among our top players this time around, so it's rather of a big dip compared to last month, where it won an incredible 80% of their matches. Nothing really changed about the deck though, perhaps players have figured out how to beat it better, but nonetheless, it is still arguably the strongest deck in the format. As for win percentage in the match based on die roll, strangely enough it had a slightly lower win percentage at 66% when the top players won the die roll and 71% when they lost the die roll. Realistically, the numbers are very similar, and in the last few months of my meta-analysis, it showed how this deck's win percentage generally did not differ much based on the die roll. Among all players on Dueling Book in the last 7 days, this was still the most played deck by far, and won about 59% of the matches among all players, which is pretty impressive. I think something has to be hit in this deck, although I would say that it is still a fair deck, especially compared to some of the other top decks that we've had in the last few formats. Hopefully Imperial Order at least gets banned since all Tri-Brigade decks are playing that, and perhaps something like Revolt gets hit to 1 to reduce their grind game and make Bearbrum a big choke point. Curious to hear what your thoughts are on how this deck would get hit, if at all. Next up we have Drytron, which won about 73% of their matches among our top players, higher than last month at least. Definitely a big difference based on die roll, as it won a really impressive 80% when they won the die roll, but just 58% when they lost the die roll. It's a deck that's definitely known to struggle going second, especially since they typically don't play many hand traps, at least in the main, other than the Orange Heralds. But at least going first, Ultimateness is certainly a pain, and a lot of the builds are running Dragoon as well to have something to fall back on when they get drolled. It's still the second most popular deck among all players on Dueling Book in the last 7 days, right after Tri-Brigade, and won a pretty crazy 61% of the matches even among all players. I think Drytron will likely take some hit. I mean, getting multiple Orange Heralds in hand can be pretty busted, and if you're going second against Drytron, there's not many cards that can stop them from activating the oranges. Some have called for bans to Ben 10 or Eva, so I'm curious what will actually end up happening. Then we have Dragon Link. No matter the ban list hits, it looks like it always finds a way to claw back as one of the top decks, having won 64% of the matches this time around among our top players. Definitely die roll dependent as usual, having won 77% of the matches versus only 52% based on the die roll result. Still a popular deck as well, being the 5th most played deck overall among all players on Dueling Book with a solid 58% win percentage. At this point, I don't think Dragon Link deserves any more direct hits, and I think it's really impressive how it just keeps adapting and maintaining at least tier 2 status for a while. Finally, we have Prank Kids, aka Pack Kids. Since Pack won the YCS with this deck and has posted several videos on how to play this deck, so make sure to go check his channel out. The top players won 70% of their matches with this deck this time around, although of course keep in mind on the small sample size as always. Another deck with a gap in win percentage based on die roll, winning 81% of the matches when they won the die roll versus 62% when they lost the die roll. Despite being a really strong deck, it falls outside of the top 5 in most played among all players, falling at 7th in the last 7 days with a 58% win percentage. Trying to hit prank kids on the ban list is pretty difficult since all of the main deck monsters, for example, are all equal. I know some have said maybe limit Dodo Doodle Do, so that'd be interesting, but I wouldn't be too surprised if it does not get any hits at all. Really insanely consistent and strong deck though, so curious to see how Konami will handle this one. Alright guys, so that was it for this month's meta analysis. I know the format is stale, but hopefully this video was still useful. Can't wait for the new ban list to come next month, and I will do a meta analysis following that list as well. Take care guys.